Tonight's film deals with the supernatural as a possessed man attempts to destroy his family. Although edited for television, it may not be suitable for young viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
You are traveling through another movie. A movie not only of horrible acting and nonsensical plots, but of bad directing. A journey into a shitty production whose plot coherence is that of imagination. Your next stop is The Shadow of Death.
You can see the whole world from up here.
Big deal. All the way to the interstate.
My grandma says the world used to go past the interstate.
That was 1 billion years ago. Come on.
Here we are, the final episode of It's a Good Life, but I thought before we'd get into the sequel, I just wanted to say one more thing about the Twilight Zone movie. I think the best way to sum up this movie is from the analysis of Roger Ebert. He said of the Twilight Zone movie, "The surprising thing is the two superstar directors are thoroughly routed by two less-known directors whose previous credits have been horror and action pictures. Spielberg, who produced the whole project, perhaps sensed that he and Landis had the weakest results, since he assembles the story in ascending order of excitement. Twilight Zone starts slow, almost grinds to a halt, and then has a fast comeback." Following the failure of the Twilight Zone movie, CBS for some reason decided it was a great time to resurrect the show. And in 1985, that's what they did. I remember watching this show as a kid and being super creeped out when that intro would come on. Nowadays, not so much. The show only lasted 3 seasons before it was canceled, mostly because it was kinda... It's not very fondly remembered. It too was cast into the dustbin of Twilight Zone history. Then, for some godforsaken reason, in 2002, the Twilight Zone would once again return for its second revival. I honestly only just learned about this show, probably because it was on UPN and it ran for barely a season. The only reason we're here is to talk about the only sequel ever made to a Twilight Zone episode ever. It's Still a Good Life. This episode actually still holds the record for a time between a TV episode and its sequel, at 41 years and 3 months. Both Bill Mumy and Cloris Leachman reprised their roles from the original. Leachman played Mrs. Fremont, his mother, in the original. The two of them are the only two actors who ever reprised a role for the Twilight Zone. It's Still a Good Life picks up 40 years after the end of the original episode, and this is where I have my only major problem with this. The episode is great. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, it kind of kills the magic of the original. When we left the town, they were frightened and had just witnessed the horrible transformation of one of them. And on top of that, half the crops were slated to die from the monster making it snow. But apparently everything just turned out fine and we just drop in 40 years later like nothing's wrong. Still, that aside, this is a great episode, and it's a great sequel to the original. We are treated to a similar narration to the original, but instead of Rod Serling, we get Forrest Whitaker.
40 years ago, Rod Serling introduced us to a monster. Now, it's 40 years later, and the people of Peaksville are still in hell. Oh yes, there's one other thing. The monster now has a child of his own. And though she possesses none of her father's powers, he still loves her. Very, very much.
Not to nitpick, but look at this map. What the hell is wrong with Wisconsin? Where the hell is Door County? Why is California so rounded? Did they slap this shit together in 5 minutes? We learned from the intro that the monster now has a daughter, Audrey, who has none of his powers, but he loves her very much. Audrey is played by Bill Mumy's daughter, Lillian Mumy. It must have been super special for these two to basically work together. They have a great on-screen relationship, probably owing to the fact that both of them were child actors and their father and daughter in real life. Audrey is playing with one of the neighbor kids when she falls out of the tree. This brings out Anthony, and he's pissed. If you thought that maybe he had grown up, you're mistaken. He really gets pissed at this kid and almost hurts him, but Audrey interferes.
Please don't hurt him, Daddy. He didn't mean it. I know he didn't.
I won't hurt Timmy, honey. He's your friend. And he's always thought good thoughts about us. Haven't you, Timmy?
But as for the kid's father, not so much.
But you don't like me, do you, George?
Please, Daddy, stop!
I don't like you either.
Daddy,
has the magic touch. The eyes are exactly the same. What I love about this scene is he kills the guy and then sends him to the cornfield. He then turns to it again and goes, yeah, you better go home, your mom's waiting. Like, what the fuck? I mean, that is a true sociopath.
Daddy?
You better head on home, Timmy. Your mother's probably worried about you.
Inside, Grandma tries to calm Audrey down, and she reveals that she actually has the same powers as her father by breaking a picture.
We don't want to make him angry, do we?
I don't care. I hate him.
Mrs. Fremont urges Audrey to keep her powers hidden from her father, but she reveals that he can't read her thoughts, but she can read his, which means she's already more powerful than her dad.
You mustn't use your powers. You can't even think about them in front of your father.
Don't worry, Grandma. Daddy can't read my thoughts.
How do you know that?
Because I can read his.
Downstairs, father and daughter are having a discussion about the cornfield. What I love about this is that Anthony sends people there so he won't hurt them, even though half the time they're transformed into something beyond imagination or they're on fucking fire. The most important thing we glean is that when he sends something away, he can't have it return.
Daddy, what happens to people when you send them into the cornfield?
They get to stay there forever.
I know, but what kind of place is it?
Oh, it's a good place. It's a really good place, and the people that are there are happy all the time.
But if it's such a happy place, why do you only send them there when you're angry?
Well, I do it for their own good, so I won't hurt them anymore.
I'm gonna miss playing with Timmy. You think you could bring his daddy back so he'll play with me again?
I'm sorry, honey, but you know, once I send something away, I can't bring it back.
Later on, Mrs. Fremont takes Audrey to a neighbor to show Audrey's power to her.
Sweetheart, see that big rock right over there?
Yes.
Can you make it go away?
She also reveals in the intervening years that Anthony has not only sent his father, but his wife to the cornfield, making him the biggest douche of all time. Mrs. Fremont also feels an immense amount of responsibility for having the monster, even though the town doesn't blame her. But now they have some hope, a weapon to fight back with, and that weapon is Audrey. Later that night, we see that bowling has replaced TV night. Anthony forces some schlup to bowl with him, and he gets pissed for the guy sucking at bowling.
Concentrate.
I will. You'll see.
You're not even trying.
Yes, I am, Anthony. I'm trying really hard.
Do you want me to be happy?
Hey, Daddy. Wanna play a game of pinball with me?
But Audrey saves the day. Back at home, Grandma's showing her pictures of the world, leading her to ask why Anthony got rid of it. She sort of answers it. Honestly, it's a lot like the cornfield discussion from earlier in the episode. They really don't answer it, leaving it up to your imagination the way it should be.
Why did Daddy get rid of cars?
Well, same reason he got rid of electricity. And those tall buildings and the stores and all the people.
But what reason?
Well, because they annoyed him or made him angry or frightened him.
My favorite part of this scene is when they're looking at pictures, they see a picture of her and her husband, and we see that she has this watch. What is so funny about this is that that picture is a still from the original episode. This is right after it starts snowing, and Mr. Fremont has to be stopped by Mrs. Fremont. He's freaking out because the crops are gonna die. That's not what I would call a warm and fuzzy memory. But the more important thing to be gleaned from this scene is that Audrey can bring things back that have been sent away, as seen by the fact that she brings back the watch.
Oh, Audrey, will you look at this watch? Your grandpa gave that watch to me on our 2nd anniversary. you can bring things back.
Anthony comes home and he's not in a great mood. He confronts his mom about the knowledge of Audrey's abilities. You'd think he'd be pissed, but he's actually really happy about his daughter having these abilities.
Did you see that? Oh, yeah, that was good, Audrey. That was really good.
And you're not mad at me?
Why would I be? You're special.
The next day, a meeting is called at the bowling alley and the shit finally boils over. Anthony decides that he's going to choose 4 people at random to send away because he's pissed about the town hiding his daughter's abilities. Mrs. Fremont reaches the breaking point and tells the little bastard off.
Love you? Love you? I curse the day I gave birth to you. Night after night, I lie awake in bed, thinking of ways to put an end to this madness, to put an end to you. And you want to know why, Anthony? Because you are a bad man. A very bad man.
But she made one miscalculation. She trusted Audrey. Audrey snaps and sends the entire town away. She has reached full monster.
Wish him away. Do it now. Do it now!
Audrey?
Audrey, what are you waiting for?
I can't hurt Daddy. I heard her. She was thinking mean things about me. They all are. They all don't like me. None of them do. Even Timmy. They're all bad, sneaky people.
Now that the town is completely empty, Anthony starts to feel a little lonely. So Audrey just brings the world back.
You brought what back?
Everything. All the different countries, the cities. You think we could visit New York?
New York's a big place. Lots of people.
Yeah, and they all better be nice to us, or you know what we'll do to them.
Excuse me. You folks know the way to Highway 10?
And after New York, we can visit all kinds of places.
This is where it gets a bit confusing if you stop to think about it. She brings back the year 2002, not 1961. The point I'm trying to make is that in the original narration, we're told that we have no idea what happened to the world. But according to this, the world just kept going without Peaksville, which is evident by the modern jet, the new-looking car, and the way these people are dressed. They would not have been dressed that way in the 60s. Either way, the two of them decide to travel the world, and the world better think some fucking happy thoughts.
I've never been anywhere else but Peaksville.
It'll be fun. You'll see.
Hey, buddy, you deaf?
Are you happy now, Daddy?
You bet I am, honey. It's gonna be a good day. Real good day.
And that was It's Still a Good Life. I have to say, if you take it on its own, it's a great episode. My issue with the conflicting ending is just a minor complaint. This is a great addition to the Twilight Zone universe. Honestly, I think they should revisit the story for the new revival that's out. Audrey is now a young 20-something and Anthony would almost be 70. It would be interesting to see if she was a mother and if he had taken on the form of a grandfather. The amount of damage they could cause in the world is just spectacular. I'd like to imagine that they rule the world like they did Peaksville. Now they have a whole world to play with. This has been a fun journey looking back on my favorite episode of The Twilight Zone. Check out the original, fuck the movie except for the last 2 segments, and check out the sequel episode. You won't be disappointed. So, till next time.
It's gonna be a good day. Real good day.
Daddy?
You better head on home, Timmy. Your mother's probably worried about you.
Yo, subscribe today.